Welcome to the Impact Maker's Journey from Passion to Profits, the podcast showcasing heart centered coaches, experts, and energy healers who are on a mission to change lives and create meaningful success doing what they love. I'm your host, Wendy Vaughn, business success coach and founder of Impact Maker Coaching. And I've got to be honest, the path from passion to profits is rarely easy, but it's always filled with growth, clarity, and surprising rewards. Now, each week I sit down with inspiring impact makers who have turned their knowledge and wisdom into thriving businesses that are making a meaningful difference for others. I will explore their personal and professional journeys, how they found their calling, and how they continue to stay aligned with their passion along the way. So if you're here to expand your vision about what's possible for yourself, you're in the right place. So join me as we discover the positive ripple effects created by today's guest. All right, hi there. I have as my guest today, Matt Douglas. So Matt is a teen and young adult mentor, as well as an academic counselor, and he's also an author. So I'm super excited to chat with you today. Welcome, Matt.
Hi,
Great to have you
Wendy.
as a guest.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, so what we're going to be diving into today is just the journey of an entrepreneur, right? Because it is a journey. Every entrepreneur goes on a business development and really an inner development journey with the true vision and I call it a mission, right? Of making a meaningful difference for others. And it results in the ripple effects creating, I believe, an impact on our world. So the journey from passion to profits, it's different for everybody and it's typically not easy. All right. So I'm excited to discover more about you and the important work you're doing. So, first of all, Matt, when did you become a professional coach?
Well, it was probably about 7 years ago or so. I had been in education, my whole career. After graduating college, I was a teacher and then an administrator at a private school and some other things in between. And yeah, about 7 years ago, I made the leap. I was working at a school doing mentorship and some coaching kind of in a school format for a number of
Okay.
students. And then I left to do it basically on my own with my own private clients and their families.
Interesting. So you really felt that, I guess, sense of, satisfaction in working with people at that age and just supporting them to gain kind of a clarity around what the heck should I be doing? Right?
Yeah, I've kind of always considered myself an educator. I use that term pretty generally, and it's I don't know if you call it a calling or whatever, but I've always felt called to it in some way since I realized sort of what it was. And I get this personal satisfaction and joy out of working with students, mostly middle school and high school and into early 20s. And I felt like that work that I was doing at a school was very meaningful, but I felt like I could do it in a way that worked better for myself and my personal goals if I
Mm-hmm.
went out and did it privately. And it's
Right.
never perfect and it's often hard in some ways, but I'm glad I made the jump and it's been really, really good for me in a lot of ways since then.
Yeah. No, when you're working within another entity or organization, you have to play by their rules. You have
Sure.
parameters and, a specific role that you're serving. And then when you break out of that or launch out of that, you have a lot more flexibility and creativity and can bring more of your bigger vision into that. So curiously, why do parents of teens as well as those young adults hire you?
Well, the answer to that kind of runs the gamut, but the simple response is their teens are struggling in some way.
Mm,
They might be struggling at school, or they might be struggling socially, or behaviorally, or emotionally, or sometimes all of the above.
yep.
And they're looking for someone who's not a teacher or a parent, but somebody who can speak to their kid or their student in a way that breaks through. And so really what I feel like I do for my clients is I'm kind of a mentor and a guide for them in whatever ways they might be struggling or whatever goals they might have. And
Yeah.
so that, yeah, that can mean a lot of things for a lot of different people. I'm not a therapist. I tell that to parents when the first, 5 minutes when they call me, half the time.
Clear a barrier there, not
Yeah,
a
uh-huh.
therapist.
But I certainly talk about some things that are pretty deep with a lot of these kids and their families too. But
Sure.
sometimes it's just working with kids on school skills and college consulting. I'm in the process of writing a book that should be out very, very soon, probably when this podcast is released. That is kind of walking students through the process of searching and applying to the schools that are a good fit for them.
Mm,
So, I see my job as doing whatever I can in my power to help the students, kids, teens, young adults that I work with and the families grow,
mhm.
in whatever way that might mean. That's good.
Yeah.
That works for them.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that makes so much sense because I can only speak obviously through the eyes of our kids, right? Because this is a whole different world that, from when I was a kid. The
Sure.
social media, the,
Yeah. It's a
advanced
lot.
technology, the
Yeah.
rapid speed of getting access to information, um, and not knowing exactly who's generating the information that suddenly is sounds and is so influential, and creates a lot of, I think, added stress for kids to just,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know what the right word is, but everybody wants to feel like they've got it together.
Well, they're never turned off. So
Yeah.
in this age that we live in, and especially these kids and these teens who are living through it, their phone is always on. And every that means the whole world
And
is always there.
notifications. Ding, ding,
Yep.
ding.
Yep. And it's very hard for many of them. And
Mm-hmm.
and I'm 37, so I'm kind of on the cusp of the older generation and the newer one. So I can kind of see both sides of it. And yeah, I think there's a lot of challenges that the newer generation is facing that
Yeah, just
are
the
not apparent.
comparisonitis, right? They see what others are doing, and it's comparing them to us, them, the others to the teen, and feeling all this pressure to, oh, maybe that's what I should do, or maybe, boy, they're getting a lot of recognition, I should do that, and should, instead of really finding that inner clarity, which it sounds like a lot of the work that you do is to support them in making those better life decisions based on maybe what their, ideals are, that
Yeah.
resonate, even if
Yeah,
it's
that's pretty accurate.
choosing the, their homework schedule, as well as choosing the college career path. Those kinds of things are just such, big decisions at that age,
Yeah.
and the parents are sometimes not unbiased, and they come with all sorts of other, maybe, um, expectations that create
Definitely.
a different level of
Absolutely.
stress for the kids. I don't know.
Yes.
Speaking personally about
Yes.
our three boys.
Yeah.
So,
How old are your boys now?
the youngest is 23,
Okay.
23, then 26 and 28.
So
So,
they've all felt this in some way, I'm sure. My
oh yeah.
oldest clients are about as old as your youngest, about 23. And yeah,
Hmm.
they're all this whole generation is going through this pretty dramatic time where information's at your fingertips. Social media is always right there as well. We're in this very odd sort of economic and political climate as well. And these kids feel it, whether they are conscious of it or not, and that can add a lot of stress too. And so, a lot of what I'm doing when I'm working with these clients and their families is sometimes just giving them perspective on that. If you're 15 years old and this is the world you've grown up in, it's all you know. And
Hmm.
so, my life has been different than theirs, of course, but I can share a lot and I can share stories of other clients that I've worked with in other situations and show
Yeah.
them that their world is bigger than they might realize.
Yeah. No, and in fact, I was going to ask you if you could share maybe a story, obviously not including names, but of a client that has really made a meaningful shift as a result of your support and mentorship. Can you maybe share with us a little?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to kind of generalize a few clients that have had very similar trajectories.
Okay.
So a lot of the students that I will work with are the parents will call me because they're struggling in school. And sometimes they're a freshman, going from eighth grade to ninth grade,
Yeah.
where that can be a very tough transition because it's almost like jumping a year for a lot of students. The expectations change, the environment changes.
Right.
Sometimes, though, they're juniors, and it wasn't until junior year when things got really tough. Or sometimes they're in college and they're a freshman or sophomore in college, and they're feeling that. And I cannot tell you how many times I have gotten a call from a parent, and they basically told me the same general story, which is my son or my daughter, they had everything together, they were doing really well academically, they felt good, all these different things, and then things got really hard and they fell off the rails a little bit, and their grades started suffering, their work started suffering, they lost some self-esteem, they weren't as interested in their hobbies as they were before. What's going on? We don't know what's happening. Help, basically. And I've heard that story more times than I can count.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what typically happens when I start working with a student like that is I'm trying to identify where are their stress points. So what has gotten more difficult? What about school has gotten harder? What about their life has gotten harder? Or what about what's changed? And once I can identify some of those things, I can really work to address them. And so often, and here's sort of the common story, often it's a fairly bright student who just kind of went to class and sat there and learned and did well on the test, and they never had to do any work at home. So
Right.
they never learned any school skills or executive functioning. So they never learned how to take notes, they never learned how to study. They never really learned how to manage their time. And so
Mm,
once school got a lot more difficult and they couldn't keep all that information in their head anymore, well, now
right.
suddenly they're not taking notes. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to study because they never studied before. They don't know how to manage their time. And so things are falling apart. And so what
Right.
I do is once I've identified some of those problems or challenges, we're building up the skills to address those. I'm teaching them
Mm,
note-taking skills or study skills. We're working on, you have a test coming up in 2 days. Let's talk about how you're going to plan for it and study for it. I give them all kinds of examples of other students I've worked with where the same thing has happened, and here's how they got out of it. I talk to the
mm,
parents and the family about the same kind of things to give them some perspective. I was just talking to a family last week, and they just called for the first time. This is the exact situation, and basically I said, "Hey, your kid is unique, of course, but they're not. I've seen this so many times." And
right.
just me telling that to them was a relief because they're like, we're not alone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so what I'm doing with these students is building them up, building these skills up so that they can succeed in the future. And look, school's always going to be challenging in some way, but these kids, if there's even a little bit of motivation on their end to improve, they almost always do, and often pretty
Mhm.
significantly. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, that's so critical because, like you said, people are uh, into the mode of you can succeed at a certain level, and then when things get a little bit challenging or more distractions or whatnot, if you don't have those skills or systems in place to kind of continue the trajectory, it's like up barrier.
yeah,
So, I'm just curious. I mean, it sounds like a lot of the work that you do is also supporting them to be successful in a college situation, because
definitely.
let's face it, that's a whole new level of academic
Yeah.
demands and distractions and
It's the
time
academic
management,
demands.
you know.
Yeah, it's the academic demands combined with the independent living. And
Mhm.
one or both of those things can be a challenge for a lot of students going off to
Yeah.
college.
So setting them up at this age with those skills, systems, and perspective really catapults the success rate, I would imagine, within, through college.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. So I know that you're writing a book, and it might be
yeah.
published soon, very soon.
I'm knock
So
on
tell us,
wood, it's coming.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So tell us a little bit about that. What's the name of the book, and give us some little juice
yeah.
here,
So by the time this is released, it should be out, which is
right?
great. The book is called Unlocking College Admissions, your step-by-step workbook for finding the right college and getting in.
Okay.
And I think the name kind of says it all.
Yeah.
So, what I've done over my career, first informally and now much more formally, is helping students through the process of finding the right college and applying and hopefully getting in. And so, I started this, I worked with lots of high school students, and the more you work with high school students, the more college is part of the conversation. And then in the past 2 or 3 years, I've started working much more formally with a college consulting company. They specialize in working with students with learning differences, but I work with all students. And so through the process of doing this sort of education and mentorship work on my own, and then getting more formally trained, I've learned a lot. And what I tried to do as an educator, if I was going to write something and put it out, I wanted it to basically be my voice and the kind of mentorship and guidance I would give on paper in a book form. And instead of it costing $5, $8, $10,000 that a college consultant might cost, this is going to be like $18. And so basically what the book is it's a workbook, which is what it sounds like. And it's fairly short, simple, easy to use. The goal is a kid could actually use it. I mean, kids don't read books, unfortunately, and they're certainly not reading a lot of college books. The parents might be, but the students usually aren't.
Right.
So this is for the kids. This is for a kid to open and use. And so the first half or so of the book is what to do when you're a freshman or sophomore or a junior or senior, how to think about college or other possible programs, how to search for colleges, what are your priorities, how to match those to the schools that are out there. There are literally thousands. And then once you started it's overwhelming. Yeah.
Exactly.
And so once you've done that, it's then, okay, how do you apply to these schools? And throughout the process, I'm also talking to them about what you can do as a high school student to build up your high school resume to apply and give yourself a better chance to get in. So how to think about choosing classes, how to think about taking SATs or ACTs, the whole process that's involved. And there's a lot. And so after that, there's a short section that's a college planning calendar. It's sort of a short and sweet, hey, are you doing the right things as a junior, as a senior, XYZ? And then at the end,
again, right there is total chaos and confusion,
for many. I work with lots of students who, it's May of their junior year and they haven't even thought much about college. And you're like, okay, you're going to be all right, but we got to backtrack a little bit and figure some of the stuff out.
Yeah.
So it's up to you on track. And then the last part is certainly for students, but I think equally, if not more helpful for parents and the professionals who might be working with the students and parents. It's a bunch of resource guides to the different aspects of the process of applying and searching for college. Nice. So there's write-ups on college costs and financial aid and scholarships. There's write-ups on college essays and the SAT and the ACT, which has changed dramatically in the past few years. It's amazing how much it's changed. Also discussions on how to college search resources. There's a page at the very end for how to take notes on a college visit. So the goal is that it's an all-encompassing.
Like everything. It's pretty much a survival guide, Matt.
That's kind of.
It's a survival guide.
yeah, it's a lot. It took a lot of work, and it's 98% done. Let's say we're working on some of the formatting right now, and it hopefully is out in a week or two. But it really what I did was I wrote it for the student and, sort of also for the family and any people who might be working with them, but to just sort of walk through the process in the way that I would if I were working with their child. So I'm excited. I'm excited. It's coming.
Absolutely. What a profound gift that you've created for families, right? Of teens that are really kind of like, oh my God, it's happening. I'm like,
what do I do? Where do I go? What do I? Yeah.
So it's not just in the distance and looking at logos. It's like getting real.
Yeah. There's a lot of excitement and anxiety surrounding the process, and this book is my attempt to
potential gotchas. Mistakes.
Yeah.
Right. What are those mistakes going to cost them if they don't understand? Oh, I got to do this by this by this, and I can actually get into this college if I do this. I mean, those are pivotal. Those are. It's a 2% difference right now, but when you look at the life trajectory, working with teens and young adults creates this huge ripple effect because they have their entire lives to live that's ahead of them, and those just little subtle changes or tweaks or decisions really make a huge shift in how their life unfolds. Not to be overly dramatic, but it's true. The work that you do is so profound at this point in people's lives because they do have their entire life ahead of them. So,
Yeah.
which kind of gives me goosebumps because we really do, entrepreneurs like you, Matt, have such an impact in the ripple effects when you support somebody to get into that college that really escalates them into a really profound, making that profound impact as an adult versus, oh, well, we're going to have to go the community college route and then apply to this, and we don't have that. And, then life suddenly gets more complex. It's not to say that you can't, still land that great job or whatever, but I'm just saying those small tweaks and knowledge and everything that you're sharing and mentoring and providing in your books and through the work with you, it does have that real tangible outcome. So just
Yeah.
curiously, what is your bigger vision for yourself, for your business, for do
Well,
you
I guess we'll
have like
see,
a
right?
big audacious goal or what? Just
Well,
curious,
I,
what's
I
going
like
on?
to I'm a hedger, right? And so what that means is I don't want to get too far ahead of myself.
Hmm.
But what I feel like I've done in the past 7 years or so, working on my own, has been to build a successful business that I enjoy, that brings meaning to my life and the clients that I work with. That's great. And I could do this probably for 30 more years if I want to, and I may. But I think part of what I've wanted more recently is a little bit more, not different, but this and so partially this book is an exploration into that. And I don't know where it's going to go, and that's okay. But
Mhm.
I feel like with my expertise and my skills and my abilities, I am more than happy to work with a student and their family. I think it's fantastic. But I think there's also more that I could potentially offer and potentially to a bigger audience. And so this book, for example, is a step at that. It's a way to share my knowledge. It's a way to share just the way that I view education and mentorship and coaching in a way that's more accessible to more people. And
Mhm.
I was just thinking about this the other day, and not to get too ahead of myself, but I have plans for another book, assuming this one is, even remotely successful, which I've gotten very, very encouraging reviews back from people who've read it. So at least that is there.
At least from what you
Um,
told me, yeah, it's a
yeah,
no-brainer.
yeah. So we'll see. And
Okay,
that in
all
of
right.
itself is exciting.
That's exciting. That's exciting because I
Yeah,
know there's a huge need out there. I'll just put it that way. A huge need. It's a big gap. I think,
yeah,
the educational systems, the academic systems, they're doing their best. There's a lot of compliances and regulations. Everybody's doing their best, right? But there's a big gap. And kids need this additional kind of support and guidance at this point in their lives because it is very complex and very overwhelming, and a lot of maybe misinformation or just bright shiny object syndrome that kind of kicks in. So I love the
all of
work
the
you do,
above.
Matt. Yep. So
Yeah,
thank you so much for sharing your time, being a guest on my show, and just doing the work that you've been guided to do to make that profound impact. So thank you so
yeah.
much, Matt. This has been my
Thank you.
pleasure.
Yeah, it's wonderful coming on. I appreciate it.
All right. Bye bye. All right. Well, the real life transformations facilitated by experts like my guest today are truly priceless. I mean, happiness, joy, peace, love, right? These are all what each of us ultimately strives for in life. But becoming a sought after and well paid coach or energy healer is often challenging, overwhelming, and frustrating. So, if you're a heart centered coach, expert, or energy healer who's striving for more ease, flow, and abundance, well, I've created a special gift just for you. So, check out the show notes. All right, well, this is Wendy Vaughn signing off. Thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to join me for my next episode where we'll be inspired by yet another impact maker's journey.